Hi there, and welcome to another episode of the Rabid Dog House, where we like to discuss lost or forgotten horror gems with a little bit of bite. I'm your host, Justin Steele, and tonight we are going to discuss 2007's P2, directed by Frank Khalfoun and starring Rachel Nichols and Wes Bentley. P2 follows Angela, a woman who is working late one night and is anxious to get to her family's holiday party. Unfortunately, once she enters level P2 of the parking garage where her car is located, she finds that her vehicle will not start. She seeks out the parking tenant Thomas for assistance, but she soon finds out that Thomas might not be all that he seems. P2 is for the horror fan that enjoys strong characters, a little bit of gore, and a holiday theme. Also joining me tonight is my fabulous co-host, Zena Dixon. Thanks again, everybody, for joining us for another episode of the Rabid Dog House. Thank you, Zena Dixon, the real queen of horror, for joining us tonight. How you doing tonight, Zena?
Justin, hi. I'm doing great. I'm super excited to talk about this movie. How are you?
Absolutely. Well, this is our third holiday-themed episode. We started 2 years ago or two Christmases ago with Wind Chill, which we love.
Yes.
And then last year we got to talk about the first remake of Black Christmas while then comparing it to the original and then the re-remake.
Mm-hmm.
And this year we are going to be talking about 2007's P2. Just jumping into it real quick, I think I did not see this in the theater, but I know I rented it probably like the first week it came out.
Mm-hmm.
There's even a chance I like bought it previously used that first weekend, like for $9.99 or something, and I've owned it since. A movie I come back to time and time again. It's definitely a holiday themed movie in some obvious ways and not so obvious ways. But I like that it's a slightly different perspective. A lot of holiday movies, I feel like, take on the theme head on. And the holiday itself is almost incidental to this movie. However, it plays a big part because this is a single woman who is she wants to go home to see her family for a holiday party. She has to work late. So I like that we start off on the perspective. And
Yeah.
again, we'll start off with no spoilers, and then we'll jump into spoilers, but no spoiler review. We have this single woman. It's nice to have a little bit of a different perspective, where we're seeing that person that has to work late on the holiday. We see that person that is not from a dysfunctional family, but there's definitely those family tensions.
Right.
And it's nice to get to have a little sympathy for the person that we're put in the view of this woman who clearly she feels guilt about being late, about being a workaholic, but it's her life. And then ultimately this movie, in obvious ways, you have the Elvis Christmas music, Santa Baby, all that stuff playing. She's carrying packages, but also the sort of, like most people, I think, when it comes to the holiday season, this movie does one of my favorite things where it sort of plays with imaginary fears as well as real fears,
Mm-hmm.
meaning like the imaginary fears we have of being late, of not working late enough or working hard enough versus real fears. It puts things in perspective. We fear working late or we fear not working enough versus a maniac that has us trapped and is trying to kill us, a
Right.
vicious dog that's going to tear you apart. It plays with those ideas of like, this is a woman who's stressed out, trying to have it all, in her professional life as well as hopefully in her personal life, but all that kind of gets put aside when it comes to just the mode of survival.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, I just really like those themes being played with. I think we've got a great cast. Rachel Nichols, she's been in a ton of stuff. She was on a show called Continuum that I really, really enjoyed. It was a science fiction-y type show where she's like a cop from the future. It also starred Eric Knudsen, who was in Scream 4. He played, I think his name was Robbie in the movie. He was the one with the camera the whole time who at the end he was like, I'm gay, so you can't kill me. And so they have a great dynamic in that. But she's sort of a chameleon. I've seen her in like various things, like Sex and the City, but she looks completely different from that to P2 and from P2 to Continuum. So she's got
Yeah.
this ability to kind of fit into the role. And Wes Bentley, this is a film for him where he was up and coming. I don't think that he had really hit it big at the time, but he definitely hits that right note of menacing, sort of charming, a little off beat, and clearly there's something up. But again, overall, for my non-spoiler review, it's a fun movie. It's right to the point. It definitely does that whole thing. There was like a trend in the 2000s, late 2000s, early 2000 teens, where we had those false openings where it's like the movie begins at the halfway point and then we kind of go back. It's either, a few hours or a few weeks, depending. But I mean, so many shows and movie did this. I remember I'm a big fan of Smallville, and at least like 20 episodes out of the entire series did this, where you kind of start with a moment that's like the future, if you will, and then we jump back to see how we got to that point. So it has those sort of themes. But again, overall, a solid movie, solid selection for somebody who might be looking for something to watch in the holiday season, but also have a little bit of horror to it. And just really love it. But Zena, how did you first come into P2? What are your non-spoilery thoughts about the film?
So I think it's similar to you. I didn't see this one in theaters, and I regret it so much. But I remember around this time, I had such a weird schedule. I used to work in the mornings, and then I would go to school at night. And I think that was probably one of the reasons why, because I was trying to find time.
For
And so I,
sure.
I think I might have rented it. So, and I remember I was kind of late to watching it because it was released sometime in like November of 2007, I believe. And I probably didn't watch it until like the following month, until around December. So just the perfect holiday thriller horror kind of movie. And I absolutely love this movie so
Yeah.
much. It's just so great. It's perfection. Like the tension, the build up, even with the main character, Rachel, that's her real name. Angela.
Right.
With Angela, in some ways, you know what? She's kind of relatable, because it's just like she's working late. And on top of that, it's just like, she's a workaholic. We've all been there before, but we just have this one more thing to finish, and we're just going to try to get it done. And then we're just going to head out, meet the family and stuff like that. And I don't think that she was intentionally, obviously, trying to like, okay, that's a spoiler, but I don't feel like she was intentionally trying to, not make it seem like she didn't want to be around her family, right? And I think in some ways that's how the picture was kind of painted at first, that she was really into her job. And so I just remember just really being super in love with the movie. It was unexpected for me. Even if you do watch the trailer, nothing prepares you for how intense this movie is and how it can be. So, and then even as far as it goes with the director, Frank K.
Calhoun or
Yes,
something?
yes. He also directed the remake of Maniac, and that movie is just everything. I love that movie, and you're absolutely right about the actress, Rachel
Nichols.
McNichols. I was going to say McNicholson. Close. Look at me. But with her, she really is a chameleon, because I remember she was in the remake of the Amityville Horror, the one in 2000 from
That's right.
2005. Yeah, she looks completely different. So it's just cool just to see her transform. And then even with the character Thomas, well, Wes Bentley, he just knows how to play being deranged perfectly, because there was this movie, it was either from the late 90s or the early 2000s, I think the really early 2000s, called Soul Survivor, and he got a little wacky in that one too. So he's just so believable. It was just like their dynamic, like, oh my god, it's just a great movie, a great holiday movie. If you haven't seen it, you need to watch it.
Couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. And then from here on out, we'll go ahead and do some spoilers, everybody. Official spoiler warning.
Yeah.
I do want to touch on, though, this isn't really a spoiler, but I do want to touch on, I didn't realize that the writers of this movie are Alexandre
Mm-hmm.
Aja and Gregory Levasseur, who wrote and directed High Tension.
Yeah.
Now, you and I had an earlier episode. I will put the link below if I remember, but here's a picture of it. But we did an episode about them and how High Tension kind of ripped off Intensity, Dean Koontz's Intensity. Great episode that we did, very in depth. But I just doing research, I rewatched the movie again and just did a little research for this episode, and I saw those names, and I was like, what? Because that kind of like we talked about with High Tension, we both were fans of High Tension, but it definitely shades or colors in the way we watch that movie now,
Mhm.
knowing that they kind of ripped this off. But this movie is fresh, I feel like. Although that being said, on our last episode we did Extremities, which really is, and I don't by any means think that they ripped off Extremities, but if you think about it, I was sort of hesitant to do this for a second. I was like, well, we really just did a movie about a woman who's going up against a guy who is ultimately trying to be a would-be rapist. And I'm not going to lie, this is the truth. My mom, I happened to show her P2 the other day, and she gave me a little sass about it because I told her, I was like, oh, well, you know what? Zena and I are doing an episode on the Rabid Dog's House on this, so it's sort of like two birds, one stone. And she's like, oh, I see how it is. You didn't really want to show me this movie. I'm like, yes, I did. But so
Oh.
we're watching it, and she's kind of like, so this because she actually is a big fan of Extremities, and she was like,
Mhm.
"Oh, this kind of reminds me of Extremities." I was like, "Get
Mhm.
out of here!" But no, I don't at all think this. In fact, they said this was inspired by true events that were happening in France at the time about
Mm.
women that were being attacked in parking garages. And interestingly enough, my mom also commented when we started watching the movie, she had no idea it was going to take place pretty much the whole movie in this parking garage, which I think is very effective
Yes.
and very fresh, because, and the comment that she made was, oh, another movie about she's like, oh, really, a girl walking in a parking lot with all these packages. We know she's going to get attacked. And it's true, that is a sort of convention or a reoccurring trope. But what's different about it is that we're going to take that little nugget of an idea, which is what I think they did really well with this movie, and create this entire full-length film that takes place in this, setting of this parking garage. And again, for even though how I feel about them regarding High Tension and Dean Koontz and Intensity and all that, I do think that they do a really good job in terms of that. Um, but yeah, what do you think about that?
Yeah.
Knowing what we know now about them and that movie, but also your thoughts on just them being involved and such.
Well, yeah, I saw that today, and it was just kind of like, oh, okay, just like not in a mean way. It was just like, oh, okay, not too sure how it didn't really seem. It wasn't the same pacing as High Tension. It felt different, for me, which is a good thing, So it's just like, okay, he can switch it up. He can actually write something that's not inspired by, you know what I mean? So
Something
it's just
actually original.
yeah. So it's nice to see that. So, but it's, and again, obviously, not that you and I were ever trying to like dismiss him as a person or as a creator. It was just kind of like, yeah, like you said, we kind of just look at the movie a little bit differently.
Correct.
So with this one though, it's just kind of like I knew that, and then when I rewatched it again, because I rewatched it on Sunday, and I saw his name, and it was just like, whoa. And so like but I made sure to stay with an open mind and everything like that, and it was just kind of like, you know what, this is really good. I still feel the same about the movie. I still think that it's well paced. I love the storyline. I love the characters. I love the fact that Angela, she is again, she's a relatable woman, kind of like similar to Extremities. You know what I mean? So it's just kind of like, so that's great. It's not like she was just, you know how sometimes some characters, they do some stuff that's just like, hey, what are you doing? And to be fair too, when it comes to like parking lot or underground parking lots and stuff like that, I'm just not a fan. I avoid them. And I think it's because of this movie. So I'd rather like park further away than to, because it's like, think about it. Like, I know there's cameras and stuff, but it's dark. It can be extremely dark in certain areas, and it completely just deserted. So, but yeah, that's just me.
Well, I'm a big guy, and so I can only imagine. Like, I feel vulnerable in
Hmm.
those type of situations walking in there, so I could only imagine. And then, yeah, I will say, I'm glad that you worded your response the way you did, because I do want to clarify as well that
Yeah.
we were fans of High Tension, and I
Hmm.
still am a fan of High Tension because I think there's some really great stuff in there in terms of being a horror movie fan. Um, and that's why I was so disappointed, because I thought they did a lot well with it. And I just wish they had just put, based upon a novel by
Right.
Dean Koontz or inspired by Dean Koontz, and that would have made everything
Yeah.
okay for me. And because otherwise, I was a fan. I am still a fan of it,
Hmm.
just makes me look at it differently. But yes, I couldn't agree more. First, I will also say about a parking garage, it is scary. Parking garages are scary. I once had my friend Meg and I one time. We actually were in a parking. It's not related to like somebody coming to attack us or anything, but some parking garages have elevators, and I live in the Cleveland area. We were downtown Cleveland. We were in an elevator in one of those parking garages, and it got stuck between
Mm.
like two floors, and it's just everything about them just creeps me out.
Yeah.
Luckily, we were able to finally pry the door open because it was like a janky system. You couldn't get help, so we like had to crawl out. But again, just parking garages in general, it's you don't know, you're so close anyway,
Mhm.
the anxiety of driving your car in there, but also strangers and people.
Yes.
It's a lot. But I definitely want to continue on. You were talking about Rachel Nichols as Angela and the character and how she's a relatable woman. I just really love how smart she is in this movie. I think, when it comes to, it's going to be hard to, we could talk about them separately, but the two characters, the movie is very simple. It takes place in one primary
Mhm.
setting, and you have primarily these two characters.
Right.
There's other bits throughout. And I can take a complicated movie with a lot of plot twists. I love those and a lot of characters, all that. But I just as much love a nice simple movie that's right to the point. We're focused on these characters, and she is smart. He's obviously kookadoo. He
Yeah.
is he's charming at times, but he's also, you can tell right off the bat, it's not. I don't think he ever goes over the top, but he's very condescending at times.
Mhm.
He does a lot of mansplaining. Like, well, everybody should be grateful this time of
Yeah.
year, but like in a way that's like putting her down. But what I really enjoy about Angela is that even when he's mansplaining or he's fixing the car and making comments about how she needs to be more grateful about things, she does what you need to do in those situations, which is just agree. Just agree
Yeah.
until you are safe and out of there. She shouldn't have to do that. She should be able to say exactly how she feels. But in my experience with dealing with crazy, agree. But
Absolutely.
what do you think about that?
Oh man, I agree with you. Like when it comes to the character Angela, she is very smart, and I love the fact that too. If I could share a scene, that I really like.
Yeah,
Um,
please.
so it's just the scene pretty much when things are they start to go down, and she's in that office with him, which I'm sure we'll go over and everything like that. And most people they'll just be like scream. I would probably just be screaming my head off because what more can you do? But then she's just like straight to the point, like, what are you doing? You know what I mean? And it's just like, and I know like a lot of people in movies they'll be like, oh, why are you doing this? No, what are you doing? Is it to me is a completely different question because it's just like she's walking. Next thing you know, he pretty much like gags her. She gets knocked out. She wakes up. She's wearing this dress, and he's talking about dinner and wanted to tell her about a book. Like, you know what I mean? Like everything was just fine. And like you said, he does do a lot of mansplaining in this. And it's just kind of like, what's your point? Why couldn't you just be a normal person and just introduce yourself to her? And yeah, there might have been a chance that she's just like, no, no, thank you. But that doesn't mean, you know what I mean? Like, it's just, and obviously there'll be no movie if that's the case. But I like the fact that she never gave up. She always was trying to think ahead, because I'm going to be honest with you. Like, if that happened to me, like, especially when she's waiting for her cab, I don't know what I would do. I have no idea what I would do. I'd probably end up going right back upstairs to my office and maybe even calling someone to see if they could help me. You know what I mean? Because just And you know what I mean? Because that whole place is
Um,
empty. And just think about like a place that you work at. You're not thinking that, okay, somebody's going to try to hurt you or harm you. You know what I mean? Even though that's another thing that happened to her. You know what I'm saying? So I love the fact that, again, she's smart and she tries to even reason with him. You know, she even tries to be like, well, you're a good person, Thomas, you know, and obviously he gets kind of sick of that. And it comes down to it, no, he's actually not a good person, you know?
Yeah, that whole him trying to be demanding. You can't demand people be your friends. You can't demand
Right.
somebody love you. And he obviously does not get that concept, which is sort of ironic because he's demanding all these people, that she feel for him. Because at the end, he's all like, why doesn't anybody want to be with me? Why doesn't anybody want to be with me? You have to earn that. You have to, and clearly he's not right mentally. And that obviously plays in a part of this, but it's sort of like if you don't see that, you can't be helped almost. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I hate to say that, but it's like if if you're not understanding the way you can't force people to feel a certain way or be a certain way. You can only ever hope for the best. And considering all the pressure she was under, and I think Rachel Nichols does a really good job of it's not obvious in any way. It's that subtleness where right beneath the surface you can tell like she's trying to keep it all together, even
Mm-hmm.
when she's talking with Carl as he's walking, or the coworker that attacked her previously. Although even she was willing to like minimize it, I think she should have felt strong. I don't
Absolutely.
want to say she should have felt stronger about it. I would have understood if she felt stronger
Yeah.
about it. But the fact that because she's just trying to be the best person she can be and not hurt anybody else. So the fact that like he couldn't have been luckier to have had a response from her that he got, which was, "You're right. It is the time of the season to be grateful, etc." But even that seemed to agitate him, and which again goes for the brilliance of Wes Bentley's performance. I never felt like he was like out of character. Even when the other policeman came in, he still, you could see the crazy beneath him, but
Yes.
just there that the cops they definitely had instincts to realize something about him's not right, but
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily like maliciously bad, evil guy who has a girl locked in a trunk right now.
Right.
And
Right.
that's part of what I really enjoy about this movie. I think every single aspect of it is believable,
Right.
especially with 2007. You had those cell phones. I mean, I remember all the time going to parking garages or
Mm-hmm.
going under a bridge or something and losing signals. And so that might be one thing that might pull out some contemporary audiences now, that, the whole losing a cell phone signal. But back then that was a
Oh
thing,
yeah.
it happened all the time.
Yeah.
And so again, just the believability of the movie, etc. I just really enjoy. And again, but his kind of crazy too, though. Like he has a dog that he sicks on her, but
Mm-hmm.
then when she defends herself, he's like, "How could you hurt a poor defenseless puppy?" I mean, that's something
Yes.
we're never going to be able to reason with him. But again, I couldn't imagine her position, waking up and realizing, where am I? What's going on?
Mm-hmm.
So, um, what did you think about all the like? I love movies that do take that sort of like his little Elvis dance thing that he does, or when he's like it didn't take me out of the movie. It could be too corny, and you
Mm-hmm.
might feel it was. I feel like though it's one of those things that makes this a little bit more of like a Christmas time holiday horror movie. Singing Elvis's "Blue Christmas" or the Santa Baby. What did you think about all the holiday stuff?
I thought that it was fitting because he's a psychopath. So
Yes.
it seems like that would be something that someone who's a little bit unhinged like him, or not a little bit unhinged like him, that they would do. Plus, on top of that, the start of the movie, Angela, she's leaving, to go to her family's house. So, she for like a Christmas party. Everyone is leaving early because of Christmas. It's the holidays. They're not going to be open again until Monday or until even after New Year's. You know what I mean? So it's just kind of like here he is by himself. He has no plans. He just has his dog and he wants someone to spend Christmas with him. So of course he's going to be in the Christmas spirit. If you saw the decorations in his office and kind of like around like certain areas like with the garage, So yeah, I just personally feel that it was just fitting for it, you know? And again, it just
Absolutely.
also added a layer to it because it's just kind of like it's so weird because like you said, you explained it perfectly when it came to when it comes to his dog. You know, he would sick the dog on her, one of the dogs to attack her, but then when she pretty much kills the dog, spoiler, it's just kind of like, oh, how could you do that to a harmless animal? Are you serious? Like, it
Right.
was, what else was she supposed to do? So it's just like, once again, like you said, there's no right with him. So even with that, with him celebrating Christmas, him dancing and singing like these holiday songs, it also adds to once again, I keep on saying the tension, but it also adds to the tension of the film. And we again, we touched on, like, parking garages and how there is just such a scary thing. It was scary because even when the officers were looking around the garage and he was playing music, it's like, we know why. But then even with the officers, it's just kind of like, okay, well, he's just a lonely security guard. And you know what I mean? Like, because he's there by himself, so he has to do something. It's like, what can they do? And like you said, they might have sensed that there was something off about him, but not girl in a trunk type of off, you know?
Yeah, yeah, and I think you're right. I think you saying that the adds to the tension of it is exactly right because he's the type of crazy that you're not like she's never going to convince him of anything other than what he is now fixated upon. And it is sort of it adds to the tension because it's believable. Like you just said, we know why he's playing the music so that they won't hear her and stuff. Couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more with that.
Okay. Hey, I want us to talk about the gore.
Nice, excellent.
Okay. All right.
Yes,
Right? Okay, so I'm usually against watching trailers because I feel like sometimes they give away too much. But this movie's trailer is actually, it's great in my opinion. So even if you did watch the trailer, I don't feel like it really spoils anything for you. If you read the synopsis, you know what's going to happen. So that's not the spoiler of it all. To me, it's so insane how gory this movie is, and it's unexpected because in ways it's like it's on that line where it has like the perfect blend of being a horror, having like thrills like that. There's so much suspense again with the intensity of this movie, and then
ah,
also oh, you like what I did? But
I
yeah, like
love it.
the intensity of this movie, but then also the gore, because the gore is brutal. I feel like, with the character Thomas, he's mean, he's vicious, but even outside of that, just some of the things that's happening to Angela, like one of the things that just like really freaked me out, and I'm always like afraid of it, her fingernail. Like her whole fingernail, like when she was reaching
Yes.
for the phone, it just came on. I have a big fear of that
Ditto.
happening.
Ditto, ditto, ditto.
Yeah, so it's just kind of like, if you're not, you know, into gore, or there's stuff that makes you cringe and stuff like that, because there's a lot of it. Like even with again, a spoiler, I won't say with who, I guess. There's a character.
No, spoiler. Do
Yeah,
it.
okay.
Let's go for it. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so the
Nathan
man
Thorne.
who the man who attacked Angela in the elevator, she works with him. Apparently, it's something that he does, according to Thomas, because Thomas has access to the cameras, in the elevator all throughout the building. So he sees him trying to attack people. What I don't understand with Thomas is, it's just kind of like, okay, why not just do something with that guy and leave these women, leave her alone, leave Angela alone? But whatever. So Thomas decides that he wants to punish him right in front of Angela. And so they go on this little ride through the parking garage, and there they find a coworker, and he is pretty much just tied to a chair, taped to a chair, mouth, tied up. And, he's encouraging Angela to like do something brutal to him. And she doesn't want to. And that's when she's trying to like talk him down. And she keeps on saying his name, trying to make it seem like, hey, I'm a person, don't do this. You're a good person, Thomas. He doesn't listen. He gets upset, after screaming in the car, which made me uncomfortable. And he pretty much goes over there and he just starts doing brutal things to the coworker. But then the thing that takes the cake for me, he gets in the car, he pushes, like he's like driving in the car and pushing the coworker, because he's on like this chair with wheels, and smashes him against the wall. His intestines are literally spilling out. And it's just kind of like, and Angela has to sit there and watch it. And Thomas is living his best life. He's laughing. He thinks that
Yeah.
it is a good time. It's just, it's a hard scene to watch because of those guts. But and I hate to say, hey, I love that scene because I realize how that sounds, but it's just like it was unexpected. You know what I mean? So yeah,
Right.
that's yeah. What do you think about
Well,
the gore?
I think I agree with you and slightly disagree with one thing in a complimentary way, meaning I think like I think it does have a lot of gory moments to it, and I think that there's a lot of cringy moments to it. Yet I don't feel like when I watch this movie, some movies that have too much gore or too many of those cringy moments, that's a turnoff for
Hmm.
me.
Okay.
And I guess this is maybe what you're saying, which I agree with. I feel bad saying it, but it is sort of almost fresh in this movie. It is sort of like it bodes well for this movie. You know, at this time, that was the era of Hostel and
Mhm.
Saw and all that. And it's sort of like those movies had some really over the top scenes.
Yeah.
So it's almost like maybe on my end desensitized because I'm almost like, well, at least this isn't as gory as those. But it's sort of like you're right. uh you are right. It is very there's a lot of those moments. The fingernail, agreed, makes me like, but at the same time, maybe because it's just so good of a movie, I don't come away feeling like, wow, I watched a really gory movie.
Right. Right.
But because it's done well, it walks right to the line
Hmm.
of being over the top. So I mean, if I'm being clear, I don't really disagree with anything that you're saying. All I'm saying is I feel like because I'm not a big fan of over the top gore, I feel like this movie, the gore works for it. You know, from that time period, you had those other movies, but it is for Thomas. It's almost sort of like he's at a carnival and he's winning the teddy bear for Angela, and she is horrified. She is petrified, and the sort of like pop, of the character when he's being driven in the car, the coworker. And I think it's a very interesting thing because we do see that Thomas has access to all these security cameras. And even though Angela, it's nice that she has a good heart and she doesn't want him to be punished, it does add an extra layer that the coworker, Thomas reveals he's not alone, that she's not the only one that he's done this to. Now, again, Thomas probably isn't the most reliable narrator or the most reliable person ever, but I do believe him. I do believe this guy has probably gotten away with it time and time
Yes.
again. Now, I personally would not punish somebody this way, but as an audience member, I'm sure there are audience members out there that are sort of cheering the coworker's death, but that's what makes it again more interesting. That's when I think gore is appropriate,
Right.
when
Right.
it's sort of like almost a commentary. But I do also kind of love movies, and like the Rob Zombie's Halloween did this at the end, or it's a staple of like 70s horror movies, like at the end of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I kind of love, and like what you were kind of saying, this doesn't really make me look good, I guess, but I do enjoy a good horror movie where you have a strong woman who comes through at the end and then she's like covered in blood, or like The
Yeah.
Descent, where like you see, because you visually can see what this woman has had to go through. She's
Hmm.
no longer because clearly she's somebody who lives her life in a very mainstream way. She works hard, she's trying to be a good person, show up with presents for the
Yeah.
kids, the traditional Santa Claus outfit, but now she's almost a warrior at the end of this movie. You feel like she has fought a battle.
Hmm.
She's come away victorious. And so again, what I meant by like I disagree, all I mean by that is where normally that would turn me off, that amount of gore, and make me cringe, this movie, it makes me feel more celebrated. Like I feel like this would almost make me like gory movies more. And that's
Right.
that's all I mean by that. But like I because you're right, you're right, it is a gory movie, but I don't personally come away
Hmm.
thinking it's a gory movie. But when in retrospect, there is a lot of gore in
There
there.
is,
A
but
lot.
I get what you're saying. You're absolutely right because like Saw and Hostel and those movies, that's extreme. It's not
Yeah.
extreme. So I get what you're saying. 100%.
Yeah. Yeah, awkwardly. As I said, that's so awkwardly. But
No.
yeah, that is what I. For once, I always kind of look at movies and I'm like, unless it's like Dario Argento or something where it's obviously fake gore,
Hmm.
I'm kind of all about that. If it almost looks like artsy in a way or it's so over the top. But when, like I said, I don't really care for movies where, like Hostel, where you feel like they must have poked this girl's eye out. It's like I don't want to feel so real. And I feel like this movie, it goes right up to that line but never crosses it.
Hmm.
Like, I feel like, oh, I would hate to lose my fingernail, but she's doing okay. She's not letting it
Right,
get her
right.
down. I feel cheerful almost, like, keep going, Angela, keep going. So I
Yes.
guess that's what I mean without saying it. But was there anything else that you wanted to kind of cover about P2?
Just again, I guess just the last thing is I love how just creepy it is. It has a creepy feel. It has a creepy yet realistic feel. You know what I mean? And there's something gritty about it, even though it's polished. So it's just like
Yeah.
it just, yeah, it has like such a great balance. And you were even talking about it like earlier, just kind of like, okay, with the character with Thomas, it's just kind of like he wants to force her to like him, and there are so many people like that, and that's unfortunate and it's scary. So I kind of like the fact again how they combined just a lot of things in this movie that would just make you squirm.
I also like, towards at the very end of the movie, a lot of times when you have a character go through like the character of Angela definitely evolves throughout the movie and she has a change within her, but I like that she doesn't necessarily become a different person
Right.
because even until the last moment, she's still willing to like just let him be handcuffed to the car. She's going to go get somebody to take care of this. She still does not want to cause harm. She did not want to cause the dog harm. She did not want to cause Thomas harm. And
Right.
that's part of who Angela is.
Hmm.
But the change within her that I really enjoy is that she's now, but then he crosses a line again, and the change
Again.
within her now is, wait, I'm no longer gonna take anything from anybody. So, like, if the coworker had survived, if he ever tried anything again, he was not getting away with it.
Yeah.
Anybody try, if the sister gives her any guffaw anymore, she's gonna be like, Sister Lorraine, shut your mouth. She's gonna have that now within her. And that's what I love. I love a change in a character, or you see them go through an arc, but she's not necessarily a different person now. She's going to be, as corny as it sounds, a stronger human
Yes.
being. And I really like that about that. But again, overall, I highly recommend P2. It's a great addition. If you haven't seen it, if you're somebody that likes to, like I do, around this time of year, pull out some of those holiday-esque horror movies like Black Christmas, Red Christmas, or Silent Night, Deadly Night. Don't forget about P2. It belongs in that category of good holiday horror movies that I think most people will enjoy. Well, thanks again, everybody, for joining us for another episode of the Rabid Dog House, where we like to discuss lost or forgotten horror gems with a little bit of bite. Please comment below, what is your favorite holiday horror movie? Are you a fan of P2? Thank you, Zena Dixon, the real queen of horror, for joining us tonight. You can find Zena over at realqueenofhorror.com, on YouTube under her Real Queen of Horror moniker, or over at Wicked Horror. And I'm Justin Steele. You can also find me over at Wicked Horror, 411 Pop Culture, or on Twitter at Wicked Horror Justin. Thank you, Zena, for celebrating this third holiday Rabid Dog House episode. I had a blast talking about P2 with you.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. And look at us, 3 years. Yeah.
Have a good one, everybody. Happy holidays. Thank
Happy
you.
holidays.